Hey guys, Patrick Sessoms with Due South Outfitters, Fly Shop and Guide Service in Boone and Banner Elk, North Carolina. Today on The Educated Angler, we thought we'd take a minute to kind of break down what fly rod actions mean. This is one of the main questions we get asked in the fly shop, and inherently, it can be really confusing. So let's take a minute and just look into this. We're going to talk on this in a really broad, general sense, guys. There's tons of different manufacturers of rods out there that break their rods down different ways, but if you can kind of grasp these three methods of deeming rod action, you should be good to go as you shop for rods and look into different types of rods to fish. What we're going to do, we're going to move over to the whiteboard to kind of break this down and illustrate what these three rod actions are to give you guys a better idea of what's going on. So the first rod action we want to talk about, and one that's probably got the most hype around it these days, is a fast action rod. What in the world does a fast action rod mean? I mean, it's not a sports car. What would make it fast? So what we're referring to here, guys, is how much the rod flexes and where it flexes. And please pardon my artistry here. Let me try to draw a rod here. So this is a rod. This is going to be your butt section or your cork, and this is your tip. A fast action rod generally only flexes in more or less the top third of the rod. What this is going to do, it's going to allow you to throw greater distance, super tight loops, punch through wind, and also roll over big flies. All of these things can be achieved with ease with the fast action rod. Now, there are a couple shortfalls of this rod. One would be that you don't have as much shock absorption. So as a fish is running away from you, if your rod's only flexing in this top third of your rod, you don't get as much flex in the rod. Therefore, you basically load the line with more energy between you and the fish. In return, you have the potential for what I call rolling or bouncing fish. In essence, you could lose a fish. This also plays into tippet protection. You can protect your tippet better with a mid-flex rod, which is the next rod we'll talk about. But fast action rods are great for big rivers that you're trying to throw a good bit of distance, maybe big bugs, if there's a little bit of wind. All in all, they're good rods in certain applications, but this is really where it shines. Once again, there's tons of manufacturers with different kind of methodologies here, but in a general sense, these are the attributes of fast action rods that they're most associated with. Now, let's go ahead and talk about medium action rods. All right, guys, so the next action we're going to talk about is a medium action or a mid-flex rod. A medium action rod or a mid-flex rod will look a little bit like this. Here's our cork. We're going to come up. And at about this halfway point, we're going to start to see flex in the rod. So a medium action rod in comparison to a fast action rod has more flex, which is going to give you a little more subtle presentation. It's going to give more shock absorption and a little more feel in the rod as well. Now, a couple downfalls of this. Usually your medium action rod or your mid-flex rod isn't the distant shooter that your fast action rod will be. However, I would say a medium action rod is truly your kind of jack of all trades. You can pretty much do anything with a medium action rod and it'll do it just fine. It'll do a good job for you. One thing I personally prefer a medium action rod over a fast action rod for is the shock absorption. I fish a lot of small flies on light tippet, and I feel that a fast action rod at times is just a little too powerful, and I'll often lose fish when fighting them because it'll just pull the fly out of the fish's mouth more or less. Take a break and see what's going on outside. It sounds like somebody's in our driveway. Last but not least, we're going to talk about a full flex or a slow action rod. All right, guys, what this is referring to is a rod that, kind of as the name says, flexes all the way down the rod. Once again, my artistry is horrible, but the goal here is to show you guys that the rod's going to start flexing all the way into the grip here, more or less, all the way to the tip. And so there's a couple advantages in this. One would be it's going to have an unparalleled feel, especially when you're dry fly fishing. So it's going to be a silky smooth cast. You're going to be able to really feel that line loading in the rod nicely. all the way down into the grip. A couple problems or kind of shortfalls with this rod: it's not going to punch through wind very well. Also, it's not a long casting rod. It's really meant for short cast. I would consider the full flex rod or slow rod like this. If you think of the game of golf, you've got a driver, you've got a chipping wedge, and a putter. This full flex rod is kind of your chipping wedge and putter. This is for that short game, precise casting, uptight, close quarters fishing. These rods really shine in our small streams in the Appalachian region. So if I were fishing, say, a small headwaters brook trout stream, I'm going to reach for a full flex or slow action rod. All in all, they're great rods, but they do have shortfalls. I'm not going to take a full flex or slow action rod out to fish on a windy day on the tailwaters of East Tennessee. I think I've kind of hit all the highlights here, guys. I may have left something out, but hopefully, once again, this is just a general kind of overview of the 3 actions of rods that we use on a daily basis here in the mountains of North Carolina. If you have any questions or any comments, definitely feel free to leave them below. We're always open ears. We love to hear new things and new takes on it. And with rods in particular, they're super hard to break down because there's so many manufacturers. But all in all, if you take this little bit of info into a shop as you're buying a rod, it'll give you a step ahead just to kind of get an idea of, what you're looking at. Anyways, thank you for your time. We really appreciate you tuning in to The Educated Angler. We'll see you guys next week. Until then, tight lines, y'all.